If you're anything like me, you're not a huge fan of the Avatar movies. In fact, I think James Cameron, the guy who made the Avatar movies, is more spectacle than he is substance. Well, I was wrong. In fact, I now believe that he is a genius, and for another fact, I think he has the answer to saving movie theaters in 2026. Okay, so if you don't know, Avatar Fire and Ash just came out, and instead of talking about the plot, about the politics, or about something else along those lines, we're going to talk about something a lot deeper. In fact, you might actually have to think, which is more than I can say about the actual movie itself. You definitely didn't have to think very hard to understand the plot at all.
Hey, it's complicated, right? It's complicated.
James Cameron made some very interesting remarks in some recent press tours that he did about cinema and, more importantly, theaters. I mean, a lot of people have opinions right now on why Avatar's box office numbers are dwindling, but I really want to know the real reason. And will theaters cease to exist soon? Personally, I thought theaters were going to die by at least 2030. But I think there's hope, and here's why. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're new here, which most of you probably are, thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate it. This channel is called Cut the Crap, where we cut through the crap of today's Hollywood landscape, and there is a lot of it to cut through. On this channel, we take movies that are current today and we dive deeper into them, looking at the implications that they have for culture and for us as moviegoers. I'd like to give my thoughts on Avatar Fire and Ash, of course, and explain a little bit about the movie. The Avatar movie was not successful because of its CGI or even because of its cast. It was successful because James Cameron found a way to make all of its characters so relatable to the most amount of people in the world. Therefore, it's going to make the most money because more people are going to want to go watch it.
So the film is called Fire and Ash for a specific reason. Seems kind of obvious. Oh, fire people, ash people, right? But I found that title through a process that went when I had written this line for Loak, our storyteller, and he says, that, you know, the fire of hate leaves only the ash of grief. And I thought, all right, that's half the equation. The other half of the equation is that grief, that loss, that trauma fuels the fire of hate.
Remarkable.
So if this is true, then why is it still failing in the box office today? Avatar Fire and Ash has grossed about $1.08 billion as of last December. And that's a lot of money, right? Like, that is a ton of money coming out of one film. As far as movies go, that's a huge success. However, it's Avatar. The standards are a lot higher. The first one made $2.9 billion, double what Fire and Ash has made. The second one made 2.3, and this one is coming in at 1.08. That is a pattern, and that pattern is decline. But here's also where it gets interesting. While there is a pattern of decline, it is the highest grossing franchise of today, to date. It has made a lot of money, that is for sure. Right now, it has made $6 billion in total. And let me make sure I read this right from my notes. Just let that sink in while I check my notes. The Star Wars sequel trilogy made $4.48 billion. Jurassic World, $3.98 billion. Tom Holland's Spider-Man trilogy, $3.96 billion. And even The Lord of the Rings sits at $2.96 billion. Right now, Disney has James Cameron under contract to make 5 Avatar movies, as of right now. Those could get canceled in the future if Disney decides that they're going to jump ship before they lose any more money, which they already have a lot. So, I mean, what's more to lose, honestly, at this point? If this franchise had met the same bar as the first movie had, this could be a $9 to $10 billion franchise. That is insane. I can't comprehend how much money is coming in and out of this movie. It's just insane. So we can complain about it as much as we want, but at the end of the day, it is the highest grossing franchise out there right now. It's doing better than anything else. So can you really complain that much? I just wanted to establish that first because we need to set our expectations to a reasonable level. Like, yes, they're not making $2 billion. They're just making $1 billion. Big deal. They're still making profit. They are still making substantial amounts of money. It's just not as much as it has been. So let's talk about that. Let's be completely honest. The whole storyline with indigenous people being suppressed by another party is completely overdone in 2026. I'm tired of seeing it. I have had enough. I need something original. A lot of movies are using the same exact plot line. We need something new, people. I don't know what that needs to be, but please experiment. Just try something new. He seems more interested in crafting that world than he does in actually making a story that's good, that's actually deep, that's actually resounding with the audience, rather than just boring them. It's boring them so much they don't want to watch the movies anymore. Got him. And here's the thing, the Avatar movie was never supposed to have a sequel. It was always about the CGI. I don't understand why they made a second one or even a third one. I understand that he loves this world and that he really wants to explore the beauty of it using this new CGI. But honestly, if you're going to do that, you have to have a better story going on. James, I don't know what else to tell you. People are over it. They're bored. This is just reality. The stakes of his movies feel artificial. They feel recycled. We need something new. These films are propelled forward by hype and hype alone. The first one was definitely built off of hype. The second and third were also hyped up, but that hype is starting to fail, which leads to my second point. I think it's his marketing strategy. And I know that's a hot take, but just hear me out. He does a lot of advertising for his movies. That's one of the real reasons that people know about it and have a lot of hype built up about the movie. When you release a movie, you want to build hype about it. You want people to get naturally excited about this through exposure and through advertisements and through word of mouth. You want people to be talking about it, and that's what he did. However, that worked for the first movie because the first movie, the biggest talking point was about the CGI. People knew that this was a new technology that had never been seen before, that had never been used the way that he was about to use it, and he did the impossible. That's what gained the first movie a lot of traction. The second and third one, though, were more built on the world itself and on the plot. The plot was lacking. The world is, yes, beautiful, I will admit. Pandora is very well designed and whatnot. I think he was very well thought out. But the plot itself is lacking. People are starting to realize that. The hype is dying. When they see an advertisement, they say, the last one wasn't that good. Is this one actually going to be better? I'll wait to see what people say and then decide if I'm going to go watch it in theaters. That's the problem. If people don't trust your last film, why are they going to go see it in theaters the next time? I really do think that James Cameron needs to reassess his marketing strategy going into Avatar 4 if it gets approved and is released like it's supposed to. I think he needs to reevaluate how he goes about marketing his movies so that people regain that trust. And I know that I'm ripping on James Cameron a lot, but here's where it gets good. Now, a quick break and some food for thought. Now, if you don't know who it is, that's the trivia question. Who sang the final song at the end during the credits? Now, we'll talk about why that's important later. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to this channel. So I reached this point in my thought process and thought that he wasn't such a good storyteller or a director. I was horribly wrong. I'm sorry, I was horribly wrong. I did more research. I looked at more of his press conferences. I learned more about the man. It's funny how when you learn about somebody, you actually end up respecting them more in the future. I really respect this guy, and I hope that you do too, and here is why. Cameron doesn't care about the box office. He's actually an environmentalist. He is using Avatar as a vehicle to inspire change in people, to care more about our planet, about indigenous people, and about the communities around us. That's his mission. And his plot isn't weak because he doesn't know how to make it stronger. It's because it's not the point. That's not what he's focusing on. He is focusing on the messages and on what people take away from his films.
Well, the technology or the science fiction idea of the technology that you could project your mind into, an alien body was more of a means to an end, to get you into a world and to place a character into a world and into a culture. So it was looking at indigenous culture through the lens of science fiction and the way that their values might be very different. And actually Avatar sort of gets a human audience to vote against themselves, bet against themselves by the end of the movie. But I don't think it's that simple. I think it's the aspirational value of the Na'vi is we want to go back to that version of ourselves that was connected with nature and that still cared about these things. And we all carry around this guilt that we've moved away from that in our urbanized technological society.
He's even said that if Disney cancels Avatar 4 and 5, he will hold a press conference to release all the details about Pandora, about the Na'vi, about all the other plots that were coming up in 4 and 5. That is the mark of a true storyteller. I don't know what else to say. I respect the man for doing something like that because he knows that the money is not the point. It is the story, it's the messages, it's the characters that he's been working on for years. That is somebody that I can respect, and that is somebody that I want to see in the film industry for many, many years to come. And what's even more insane, and I don't understand how this gets any better, is that he created this movie, either intentionally or unintentionally, I still have no idea, so that it was relatable to almost every single people group in the entire world. There are so many main characters in this movie, from little kids to very old adults to middle-aged adults, and there's a variety of women and men of different tribes, of different races. Somewhere in there, someone can visualize themselves as that character. That is how you make something that is totally relatable to the most amount of people. And I think that's why it does so well globally, is because it can go to different audiences and people are actually moved by it to a degree. Like we said, the plot's not that great, but it still is relatable to a lot of people. That's important. That is worth noting. That is why these movies do so well. There is no dedicated fan base to Avatar. Have you ever met somebody who is just an avid fan of Avatar? And if you say yes, then yeah, there probably are a few. But it's not like Avatar Last Airbender. It's not like Star Wars. It's not like The Lord of the Rings. And this is where his marketing strategy starts to fall apart. He tried to spread his net really, really wide, getting the most amount of people to love his movies as possible, to relate to his movies as possible. But in doing so, he failed to niche down to one specific audience. One specific people group isn't more moved than the other, so he spread his net so thin that nobody cares very deeply about his movies in the end. He went too big too fast, and here we are. That's a problem. That's going to bite him in the butt multiple times in the future, and it already has. You see that with the box office numbers. Full circle. So yeah, I thought he had no idea what he's doing, but I think he did. I respect him. I think his marketing strategy needs some work. I think he needs to reassess why people go to the movie theaters to see his movies to begin with. I don't think the majority of people are going because they love Pandora. I think the majority of people are going because of the hype. And this is where Cameron's real message comes in. This is where we get to the part about the theaters. I don't curse on this channel, but I do have a quote from him that I want to read, and I'm going to fill in the gaps where I can. You're welcome, those who care. I'm sorry for those who think it's cringy. I really don't care. Cameron recently said, "It's not my job to save the darn box office. It's the job of everybody that loves movies to go to the darn movie theaters and realize that there's a distinction between that which you consume from streaming and that which you go for entertainment in a movie theater." And he's right. There is a distinction between streaming and theater. Theatrical revenues are declining overall. That's just a fact. Cameron has been very vocal about this in the past in interviews, and I totally agree with him. I mean, streaming has opened up a multitude of possibilities and issues when it comes to watching movies. You can pause movies now. You can take a break in the middle and watch it on a different day. You can split it up into a whole week. You can watch a 2-hour movie in a whole week. And I think that destroys the experience that you could experience watching these movies.
If people don't go to the movie theaters, we can't keep doing it. It's pretty much that simple. So then the question is, all right, where are we going to see this kind of imaginative filmmaking? Are they going to do it for streaming at those cinematic levels? They promised a lot early on, 5 years ago, and there were big budgets to do kind of cinema equivalent kind of quality, but those budgets have all collapsed to half or a third of what they were. So now are we just going to give up and not have that kind of stuff anymore? I don't know the answer. We're going to have to see how this plays out. If people show up for this film, that's a good sign. I'll get a gig. I'm not worried, right? But I'm talking about who I was 40 years ago when I was making The Terminator. I wouldn't be able to get a foothold. So, I don't know how this is all going to play out, but I do think that if we collectively continue to honor the theatrical experience, that ourselves won't fade away.
Now the real question, and I'll just be the antagonist here, is Cameron stuck in the past? Should he adapt with the times, or should he stay with the old way of releasing movies, which is you make the movie and then you do some advertising and then you put it in the theaters and people experience it there and then they can buy it on DVD later? I think that he is totally valid in what he is saying. The theater is a very respectable approach to filmmaking, and yes, there is streaming today, but you have to know who you're making it for. Are you making the movie for theater, or are you making it for streaming? Because those are two separate types of movies that you could go to watch. Streaming is meant to be divided into segments. That's where we get TV shows a lot. That's where I would probably watch a TV show. You can't watch it in a theater. However, the theater, sometimes when you watch the movie completely surrounded by sound, in the dark, it's just you and the screen, something about that really resonates with you. I can't quite describe it, but it's something about being human. If you're a human out there watching, then you can relate to this.
I am not human, and I cannot feel pain.
And that's what James Cameron is doing. He's making films with the theater in mind. Not Netflix, not social media, not anything else. Just the theater. And I love that about him. However, I think he needs to do a little bit of research into his audience and why people are going to watch these movies. And another point, the theater is kind of a cultural pillar. Like, it's been part of American culture, especially for years. People, for this movie, they went to see the movie on Christmas Day. That is a tradition that a lot of people have. Super fascinating. I was talking with my dad the other day, and he was saying that when he was younger and the Lord of the Rings movies were coming out, he would go see those on Christmas with his family. That was just one of the traditions that they had. That's a wild way to spend your Christmas, but it has been a part of our culture for decades and decades. I find it to be a tragedy that it is going out of style and may one day disappear. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. But if we don't want them to disappear, we have to be the ones to show up. We have to be the ones to make that choice to say, it may be a dud. I don't know if I'm going to like this movie. It's going to be a little expensive. But if I put the money in, I know that the experience is well worth it, and I want to support that experience. I think it's fascinating today that a lot of things, if you want them to stick around, you have to support, because convenience has kind of killed a lot of our culture today. If you want something to last, you have to show up. If you're not going to show up, it's not going to last. That's just how that works. Fire and Ash proved this in one of the worst ways possible. James Cameron didn't quite sell the second one as well as it could have. So people lost trust in the franchise, and they decided that they weren't going to see Avatar 3. That's probably why a lot of people didn't go see the movie in theaters and why it didn't quite meet the benchmark that the last movie did. So for all the moviegoers out there, this is your big takeaway for today. If you want the movie theaters to survive, you have to be the one to make that intentional choice. Even if you know the movie might be a dud, even if the movie is the best movie you have ever seen, you have to make that choice to go to the theaters, to pay the money, to be there and experience the movie like it was meant to be experienced. And honestly, if you need help justifying that, sometimes it's well worth the investment to experience a movie the way that it was supposed to be experienced. Art needs a canvas. The theater is its canvas. Let's just hope that creators like James Cameron learn from their mistakes in the past and can create better movies in the future. Hopefully Avatar 4 and 5 will be good. Time will tell. Alright, so trivia time. If you got to this point in the episode, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Okay, so the question for today. Who sang the end credits song for Avatar Fire and Ash? I'll let you guys think on it. If you guys have been thinking on it, good for you. If you have an answer, speak up now. It was Miley Cyrus. She sang the song Dream as One. Now, does this matter? Yes, in fact it does. Think of movies like Skyfall, where there was specifically a song sung by Lady Gaga called Skyfall that gained a lot of popularity because it was attached to a really big franchise. I think this will continue to set a precedent in the future of big artists like Miley Cyrus reaching out to these movies and saying, hey, can I produce a song that we can attach to your movie so that we can both benefit off of each other's shared fame? Just a really interesting precedent that could be set for the future. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that, but just found it super interesting, and I hope you guys did too. If you could like this video, subscribe to this channel, share this video, that just helps me out. That waves the wand at the algorithm and says, please put his video in front of people. Blah, blah. That was magic sounds. Again, my name is Ethan Wood, and this is Cut the Crap. I will see you guys next time. Peace out.